You are listening to Keep Canada Weird, a weekly weird news roundup by the Nighttime Podcast.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to the weekly Keep Canada Weird discussion series. If you're new here, I'm Jordan Bonaparte, and in Keep Canada Weird, my pal Aaron Airport and I seek out and explore the offbeat news stories that played out across Canada over the past week. In tonight's episode, which we recorded on June the 4th of 2024, Aaron and I consider taking all of our clothes off at a beach in Edmonton. We wonder who stole 75 cows from a farmer's field in Quebec. We're going to mourn Newfoundland's growing collection of unclaimed bodies. And then we'll struggle to understand why a woman with a bunch of stolen mail was running around a church in Guelph screaming at people. We got a busy night here, so let's get into it. Handsome Aaron Airport. We have work to do here.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Important work, I might add.
Okay. Your finger pointed to the sky as you declare important work.
But we have enough time to have a quick chat before we get into the work we got to do. How are you? What's new? What's going on down there?
Not much. I had a show on the weekend. I was performing at the Highland Arts Theatre in downtown Sydney, Nova Scotia,
where Tom Green will be performing this coming November. I got front row center seats. I'm pumped for it. But let's hear about your show. Were you doing the Bare Naked Ladies thing?
No. This is the second show called No Word of a Lie. So it's a game show style improv show.
Okay.
So it's a panel show. So there are two panels, and then there's a game show host, and the two panels compete against each other to try and guess who is telling a lie and who's telling the truth. So we all have the first round, we all have cards in front of us. And when it's your turn, you read the card, and it's either going to be a true statement about yourself or a complete lie about yourself. But you have to sell it as if it is true, and then the other panel has to guess if your story is true or not.
Interesting.
So when you flip it, you don't know yourself if it's going to be something true about you or something false. So if it's something true, you just simply tell the story. If it's something false, then you have to make it up on the spot.
I like that.
Tell and try and sell it as if it's real.
Interesting. Other than this show over the weekend, anything else new? Anything to report on?
Not much to report on. My cat has just had his wet food.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he gets 2 doses of wet food a day, one in the morning and one in the evening. So it keeps him nice and hydrated through the day.
Good.
If I don't give him his wet food before recording, he gets very testy and noisy and tries to get my attention a lot. So,
well, let's not go there. Let's not risk that. Always give him the wet food before we start. Also, before we start, let's hear a quick update on a past story. A listener named Andy is in the know on the situation relating to the regulation of gas-powered lawn appliances. He has an update on the story we talked about last week. Listen to this.
Hey, Jordan and Aaron. This is Andy from London, Ontario. I just wanted to provide an update to you on a story you covered from here, which I'm calling the Great Lawnmower Debacle. This was about the councillor who wanted to amend the noise bylaw to not allow gas lawnmowers after 6 o'clock. Well, after receiving a fair amount of backlash, that councillor has decided not to bring the motion forward. So we will continue to be able to use our gas mowers after 6 o'clock. I love the show. I love everything you guys do to keep Canada weird, and I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks. Bye-bye.
I like that Andy had to add the caveat. Is like, I love everything you guys do. And then he thought about it, and he's like, to keep Canada weird? He doesn't want to write a blank check endorsing everything we do.
because he does not know everything you and I do.
He would be shocked and probably not like some of the hijinks we get into. But that's besides the point. We're here to talk about London, Ontario, being able to use their gas-powered lawnmowers into the wee hours of the night. Good news.
Good news. I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
I just think messing with the people who use like gas-powered appliances, it's the wrong crowd to screw with.
Yeah, probably because they can throw gas at you and light you on fire. So
That's exactly what he was worried about. No,
yeah, that's what everybody's worried
I just
about.
think like when you're dealing with like voters and stuff, you never want to mess with the old people. And I have a feeling more like old men like use gas powered stuff than the electrical stuff. And I think
Yeah,
maybe
for sure.
maybe he's like, I don't need to screw with that crowd.
Yeah, but I'm a very pro bylaw person. I love rules and I like to follow them.
Mhm.
But this one was a bit off to me because 6 o'clock is such an early time to have to be forced to have your lawn mowed by.
Well,
Yeah.
they shut it down. And that's the power of logic and reason. Well, let's get into it here. We have a whole bunch of stories tonight that will help us keep this country weird. Last week was a weird one. We're going to be talking about a unique beach in Edmonton, a crazy story out of Guelph that I don't even know how to describe it, so I'm just going to say what the F happened in Guelph. We're going to hear about the theft of a large number of cows, and we'll have to go to the weird province of Newfoundland for a rather dark Halloween themed story almost. But we'll come back to that. Where do you want to start with this?
Well, why don't we start with the beach?
Yeah, let's start with the beach. That's a great idea. But before we start with the beach, we have a string of voicemails all about a prior topic we discussed last week, aside from the gas-powered lawn maintenance equipment bylaw. Throughout the episode, I'm going to sprinkle in voicemails related to birds. Last week, we talked about both the rotisserie chickens found in the woods and we talked about the Nova Scotia Birdman. We got a lot of voicemails about birds to hear. So as we go, we will hear them. But first, let's travel to that beach in Edmonton. This is an interesting story. A woman in Edmonton purchased a home that came with a bonus, had some water frontage. However, that water frontage came with an interesting caveat. It was home to a sort of underground nudist colony. CTV News covered this story, and we'll hear the piece, and it kind of starts at being about buying a property that has a nude beach, but it quickly kind of just turns into a profile of people who enjoy nude beaches and why. So this is interesting. Before I play it, though, have you ever been to a nude beach?
No, I haven't.
Okay, I didn't think. There's one in Halifax. I've never been, but let's hear about this one. Here it comes.
Shelley remembers camping here when she was younger. It's one of the reasons she bought the land. She inherited something else along with it.
I've never been around nudist colony before.
CTV News has agreed to keep the location private to prevent it from getting too busy.
The sound of the birds, the feel of the wind on your skin is just amazing.
John discovered the spot in 2013. It changed his life.
I think to myself, I'm a person, I'm good the way I am, and I'm happy with myself.
He decided to invite others.
When you take off the clothes, people open up to each other, and they begin talking. You talk to people you wouldn't normally talk to.
At first, Shelley wanted to get rid of the group, but she changed her mind once she got to know them.
Now, there are rules, of course. Clothing is mandatory on these trails leading to and from the beach. But once you pass this sign, all the clothes come off.
The most liberating feeling like I've ever had. It was unbelievable.
I find I struggle with my body image a lot more when I'm wearing clothes.
A local psychologist isn't surprised.
That experience of being accepted for everything, for the good, the bad, and the ugly, is very healing and quite good for us.
They feel relieved, they feel a pressure off of them, and they feel free for the first time in their lives.
But don't forget about sunscreen and bug spray.
It does come with the territory, but just planning helps.
An unusual and body positive fashion statement.
Accepting people as who they are and what they are.
When you come for supper.
No, I'm not going to make fun of those people. I was about to say I'm not going to kink shame, but I don't know if that's a kink because it didn't seem to imply that it was sexual in any way. But I cannot help but see it that way.
Well, that's the thing. Growing up, you were always led to believe that nude beaches were about sex. You know, it's where people go to be naked and frolic with each other in some kind of an erotic scenario. So for a non-nudist to look at it, it's hard to imagine it not being about sex. But I truly believe that it's not, especially to these people.
Do you think it? Honestly, it isn't.
I have to be honest. There is 100% nothing sexual about these people in this news clip at all. So.
That is true. But I do believe I have a hard time believing that there isn't like a sexual side to this. Of course, like when the camera's there and they're trying to talk about it, they're talking about how, body positivity and it feels good and the wind and the birds. But I just feel like when there's a group of, of naked people in the middle of nowhere at the beach, I don't know. Maybe that's just my ignorance to this way of life, but I feel like there's a lot of weird stuff that goes on there.
I don't think there is. Not at this
Really?
one. I'm sure at many nude beaches, a percentage of them possibly do, frolic with each other in that way. But I don't think that this beach is the least sexual beach I've ever seen in my life. I dare to say there's more sex going on at fully clothed beaches in the wintertime than this beach in the summer. I really don't see it. None of these people are sexual beings whatsoever. I just don't. If you watch the news clips, I don't know. They just don't strike me as the types. But
not only is it, did they not like have like a sexual energy in the news clip? To even take like a step even further into that non-sexual direction, one of the people at the nudist beach in that news clip is they have a little like camp stove and they're frying sausages surrounded by naked men.
Yeah, and there's nothing sexy about just sausage grease splattering all over your naked body. That's none of these people are getting laid 100%, even if they wanted to.
I think that the hero in that story is the property owner who bought this land, finds out that it seems like one guy kind of started this group. This is like a nudist beach or whatever, but it's like kind of like an underground one. As they describe, there's one man who happened upon this beach and liked it. So he invited some of his friends. So it's kind of like a nudist group rather than like an actual nude beach or something. But she bought the land and found out that they were using it and what for, and she's all right with it. And in the news clip, she was fully clothed, sitting with a bunch of naked men cooking sausages on the beach.
It's funny when I watch that news clip, and for the people who are listening in podcast form, you can't see the news broadcast. You can't see the news clips, but oftentimes we comment on some of the people in it.
Okay. You're stuck on this. So yes, tell me what you see in this clip.
I see a news reporter who reminds me of a swinger. So he's like, almost like he works at the station and they're like, okay, there's this story about a nude beach. So let's send Greg the swinger.
Well, he kind of had, yeah, I noticed that the newscaster didn't look like a typical reporter. He had like long hair kind of pulled back kind of over his face a little bit. And he had a kind of a tight form-fitting shirt that almost looked like,
it was like a very brightly colored shirt.
And it was a bit smoother than like a dress shirt. Like it wasn't a silk shirt by any means, but it was on its way there.
Yeah. You have to wear clothes when you're coming down the trails until you hit this sign, and then the clothes come off. It's just like this guy's looking to exchange some keys. I think that's what he wants.
As far as it being a Keep Canada Weird story, I always enjoy a story about a small subculture that finds like-minded people and makes things happen. Whatever we want to say about what they're doing and if it's sexual or whatnot, I'm glad that these people found their little group of like-minded people to get naked with in this woman's yard, basically.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it.
So when her family comes to visit, well, how does that work?
Well, a part of the deal with her is they will remain clothed on that path from like through her property to the beach.
But I'm sure her family want to enjoy the beach too. Like if her, she's got her sister and her sister's kids are there, and it's like, let's go down to the beach now.
I don't have a beach.
Don't go down to the beach. What beach? The one where that news reporter keeps going in and out of all the time.
I like it. I'm getting uncomfortable, so let's move on to something.
I'm getting very comfortable. I want to keep going on this one story.
Let's transition from these men at the nude beach to some stories about birds.
Okay.
I'm winking. You get it?
You're also making some kind of a chipmunk sound too. Is that?
That's an audible wink. Like when you wink, you go like. That's what I'm doing.
You also do that when I want a dog to come eat a tree out of my hand or something.
Let's hear from Jessica. Jessica has a bit of a correction for handsome Aaron Airport.
No, skip it.
You were a little hard on the Nova Scotia Birdman last week, mainly surrounding the Nova Scotia Birdman's connection to his bird romantically. Jessica, I think Jessica may be able to inform you a bit. Listen to this. Listen to what she's dealing with.
Hello, Jordan and Aaron. My name is Jessica, and I just listened to your Weird Canada episode where you talked about the Birdman who would take walks with his parrots. And I just wanted to touch on that subject. I have quite a few parrots of my own, as you could probably hear in the background. And one of my female parrots, she's an African gray, she absolutely insists that my husband is her boyfriend. So it's not very uncommon. Birds are a little bit different from cats and dogs, and they like to think of their owners as their mates, even though you should not encourage it. It does tend to happen. She lays eggs for my husband, and she wants nothing to do with me, only him. And that is it. They are a couple, apparently, even though he does not encourage it. But it is what it is. That is all. Thank you, and stay weird. Love your show. Bye.
You want to handle that?
Well, again, it's hard for me to debate this because I know little to nothing about parrots and any exotic birds that one person might put in front of me. I mean, the term boyfriend and or partner, I don't know. Birds don't. I don't know. I just think we're using too much human language here when we're trying to put a label on a relationship or a connection that an animal might have with a human being. I don't know.
It's unexpected. But I think we're going to get more voicemails related to birds, not necessarily parrots. But Jessica, what you're dealing with in your house, I think is really interesting. I love the idea that the parrot just ignores her and is all over the husband, laying eggs for him. I'd like to know more about.
But it could be
works.
that could just be the parrot likes him better. Doesn't have to be romantic or sexual. It may be because, hey, check out this sweet egg I just laid, friend. Who knows? But again, I'm speaking from 100% complete ignorance. So I can't really debate with someone who owns parrots and knows much more about them than I do.
Yeah. Well, something we also don't know anything about that we should discuss is cows, cattle, herds of cows, farming. I call it like an egg community, agriculture. You know the kind of stuff I'm talking about. There's a story.
That type of talk is flying over my head, my friend. I don't.
There's a story related to cows that we have to get into. This is a mystery. Jonathan Fortin owns a farm in Cookshire, Eaton, Quebec. On his farm, he had a large herd of cows, roughly 75 of them. As you can imagine, a lot of work goes into managing a herd that size, feeding them, cleaning up after them. However, when Jonathan woke up this past Friday morning, his weekend plans of cattle raising were immediately canceled. The entire herd was gone. The only evidence left behind? Some tire tracks in the mud. Listen to this.
Donc les barrières ici étaient déjà fermées.
Arriving home last Thursday night, Jonathan Fortin didn't notice anything out of the ordinary. The thieves that had visited his farm had closed the gate.
Quand j'ai fait mon tour le matin,
He says it was when he was making his morning rounds that he noticed the gate was closed differently and the tire tracks.
Donc, on voit ici les traces du véhicule, là.
Right away, Fortin headed out to his back fields. What he found was something he thought was impossible. All 75 of his cows were gone.
Ils ont fait le tour comme ça.
Fortin says the thieves herded the animals in the field with a vehicle. It wouldn't have been difficult. The cows would have followed the path they usually take to be fed. But once there, getting dozens and dozens of cows into a truck, or more likely 2 trucks, would have been more complicated.
C'est des gens qui étaient organisés, qui sont arrivés.
There are people who were organized, he says. They came in a group. Now, it is a massive loss, likely about $200,000, and they weren't insured. It didn't seem necessary.
Ça prend des gens qui connaissaient bien ça.
Michel Briand is with the Agricultural Union and says whoever took the cows knew what they were doing. The question is, what can they do with the cows now? Each has 2 earrings identifying where they're from. If they're removed, no abattoir or auction is going to take them.
L'identifiant est obligatoire.
Briand says they're probably in another person's backfield, possibly in another province, while the thieves hope for the heat to die down.
Oui.
Now, police are in contact with Fortin. They're working on some tips, and he hopes he can get his cows back.
Merci beaucoup.
But the other part of what's upsetting is Fortin knows he was being watched, even followed. The thieves planned the heist for when he'd be away working at his second job and were gone before he got back.
Comme ceci.
Neighbors did hear some strange noises, but not quite strange enough to look into it.
Donc, c'est de repartir à zéro.
Fortin and his wife now find themselves starting over in a deep financial hole. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Cookshire, Eaton, Quebec.
Now, I say it's a mystery. I think a part of the mystery, like it's hard to fathom how big of a theft 75 cows would be. Like that's like a field, like 75 cows is a large number. That's like a field of cows. I guess if you know what you're doing with cows, you can herd them and get them to move together. But like how many cows would even fit in it? Like what kind of vehicle would you need to bring, or vehicles would you need to bring to get that many cows inside? It's this story's mind-boggling. It's a bizarre theft.
Yeah, like the transport alone, like it had to have been a massive mission. Like I don't again, speaking from ignorance as usual, but at least transfer trucks.
Yeah, you would think. And there's also that kind of espionage side to the story as well. Like it seems like they were kind of casing the joint to make sure he wasn't going to be there, because it would take some time to get the trucks in and get all the cows moved around and stuff. It's a pretty big operation. And I don't know if it said it in the article, but the estimate is that many cows would be worth somewhere in the area of $200,000. So it's pretty sizable loss. The cows weren't insured against theft. I never would have, if you have 75 cows, you could probably count on every so often one gets sick and dies, or maybe one wanders off or something. That's super unlikely. But I would never have thought in a million years someone would come and steal 75 cows at a buddy's field.
No, cows to me at first glance seem like an unstealable animal.
No, yeah.
Slow moving, heavy, big, and 75 of them. Like I could see, okay, we stole 5 cows, or we stole 1 cow, or something to that effect. But 75 is an astronomical number.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel for this guy.
Yeah, and then like you said, like they said in the news coverage, they can't just turn around and sell them right away.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe another farm is involved, you think?
That's it. I think it must be, because if you can't just sell the cows, and get the money back that way, you would have to get it back through milk if they're dairy cows, or the meat if they're not. So you would have to have your own to kill and butcher 75 cows and sell all the steaks and stuff. That alone is a huge operation. So I would imagine, and it seems to be the theory that they have in the news piece as well, is that some other farm is in on it and is just taking these cows and is going to just, I guess, mix it in with what they have. But it's crazy. I'm shocked by this story.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's just the manpower it would take to pull this off, the logistics. It has to be such an organized, large entity that's involved with this thing.
Yeah, I feel for Buddy. And in the news, again, I don't know if they mentioned this in the news clip we listened to, but in some of the information that I read implied that he, over the last several years, got into like this farm as like a hobby farm and has slowly been growing it and was just about at the point that he was going to focus full time on farming. That's not going to happen anytime soon. He's back at square one, and that sucks. A
Well, you
labor of
think
love.
you think maybe the competition he was about to provide
Maybe they're like,
might
this
have
guy's,
upset the wrong farm owner, and they're
yeah,
like, you know what, this guy's going to be stepping in on my territory. Mr. Part-time farmer thinks he's going to be Mr. Full-time cowman.
yeah.
Has another thing coming because
The
I'm going
milk
to take his
mob,
cows.
the milk mob came and got him.
The milk mob, yeah, that's right. I like that. The milk mob.
Let's move on. I got a voicemail here I want to share. This, I guess, one of the theories with that cow, with the stolen cows, is maybe they're going to butcher them and cook them and sell them as steaks or something. Let's hear about another cooked animal, rotisserie chickens. In our episode last week, we talked about the pile of rotisserie chickens found in the woods in Yukon, and there's a whole lot of theories about that listeners of Keep Canada Weird, members of the Keep Canada Weird Army, are going to present about what they think is happening there. But before we get to some of the theories, we have a listener who just wanted to share another name for rotisserie chickens. I'm curious if you've ever heard of this.
Hey, Jordan and Handsome Aaron Airport. This is for the Keep Canada Weird series and the topic of rotisserie chickens. I thought you might want to hear the funny alternative name for rotisserie chickens that's often used in my little Cape Breton town. We often refer to them as divorce chickens, and that's because typically when people get divorced, they rely on one partner or the other to do all the cooking, so they don't know how to cook, and they rely on rotisserie chickens to survive. Anyway, I thought you guys might find that funny. Keep keeping Canada weird.
Have you ever heard of divorce chickens?
100%. That's what I call them, is divorce chickens. I never brought it up on the show last week, but yeah, me and a group of friends, we call them divorce chickens. And when I got divorced or separated, whatever you call it, I still live off of these.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to cook for one person. So when you get divorced, when you break up with somebody, it's not that you can't cook. It's just that it's just hard to cook for one. And then the divorce chicken becomes a very useful and affordable tool to have a good meal.
Yeah, and it also, if it's just one person eating it, it can last you a couple nights, and you can, eat it as like, have a drumstick one night, use some of it when you're making a stir fry the next day, and yeah, it's kind of like the protein of all trades. That's interesting.
Oh, I love divorce chickens. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm from Cape Breton, so yeah, we call it that all the time.
One thing about that voicemail and Cape Breton, though, I don't know if you noticed this. I'm going to play the beginning again. The beginning of the voicemail, I feel like she has no accent at all, but once she says she's from Cape Breton, her accent comes out like straight off the bat. Tell me if you noticed this.
Okay.
This is for the Keep Canada Weird series and the topic of rotisserie chickens. I thought you might want to hear the funny alternative name for rotisserie chickens that's often used in my little Cape Breton town. We often refer to them as divorce chickens.
It's when she says town.
Okay.
It's just on town.
Is that it?
So in my little Cape Breton town.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, that just struck me. But yeah, I've never heard of divorce chickens, but I do see the appeal for a divorcee to eat this, or just a single person who wants to eat at home. Yeah, rotisserie chicken, divorce chicken, single chicken. It makes a lot of sense. Okay, let's move on to our next story. We got two big ones here, so I don't know where we want to go with this. Do you want to tackle the wild scene that played out in Guelph, or do you want to go to Newfoundland and really get grim?
Let's not end on the grim, so let's go into the Newfoundland story.
Let's travel to Newfoundland, that weird place. I'm surprised Newfoundland doesn't get more coverage on Keep Canada Weird. So if you've spent time around Newfoundland's largest hospital, the Health Science Centre in St. John's, you may have noticed a growing number of large temporary structures behind the building. These large metal structures are obviously of some importance, as you hear the hum of fans and electrical equipment coming from them. But what they actually are and why they are there is probably worse than you would have guessed. Listen to the story of Newfoundland's unclaimed bodies.
On a hot Newfoundland day, bodies still kept cool in what officials call a temporary and temperature-controlled storage facility. Inside these units, unclaimed remains human bodies that haven't yet been buried. Officials today say they're mere weeks away from a better solution to move human remains back inside the hospital and then a new permanent home in store in October. Still, they say they don't really know why morgue space has become so full.
And we saw this problem creeping up at us. Obviously, there's something that's shifted in society. There's something changed.
There's some insight from Ontario, where new data shows the number of unclaimed human remains is rising fast, from 438 in 2019 to 1,183 last year. In about a quarter of the cases, the next of kin cannot afford to arrange a funeral. In another third of the cases, no next of kin can be identified. For now, hospital staff in St. John's have put a team together to more proactively find relatives who can claim loved ones and bury them.
That is grim to me. When I see like these large structures, I would have thought they were refrigerators for like food or something like that. The idea that unclaimed bodies are piling up so quickly and in such great numbers that the hospital has to like set up temporary structures behind the building to house them. That's really, I don't know what it is. To me, it is a sign of just like an unhealthy society. You could take a pulse or your blood pressure or a blood test and get a basic look at the health of your body. I feel like you can look at the number of unclaimed bodies in a province to get a general sense of the overall societal health of that area. What's your thoughts on this?
Really?
Yeah, I do.
I have a theory. that wasn't mentioned.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah, because the theory they plug is, the cost of funerals and whatnot, which you'd think there'd be other alternatives like cremation and whatnot. But what's your theory?
So my theory is that we're starting to now see the generation that we're having less children. Like each generation is having fewer and fewer children.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're just starting to now see the generation that kind of started that trend a little bit. And so you're going to start to see more and more people dying alone because they don't have families in the way that people traditionally did.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I think as fewer and fewer people are deciding to have children or are more fulfilled in different aspects of their lives, those people may reach a point where by the time they're old and ready to head towards the Newfoundland refrigerator in the sky, they don't have anyone there to claim their body.
Yeah, I guess that's one benefit of having many children, like people historically more commonly would have. It's almost like every kid, you roll the dice about whether or not they're going to, be successful and able to look after you later in life. If you have just one kid, you may end up with a dud. If you have 4 kids, one of the 4 is probably going to be there to help bury you when you pass away, hopefully many years later. But I think there's something to be said about the numbers skyrocketing. In that clip, they talked about the numbers almost doubling, the numbers for unclaimed bodies almost doubling in Ontario from 2019 to present. So, when you look at what has changed since 2019 to present, the price of gas, the price of food, housing, all those stuff have also become much more problematic. So I stand by my opinion that this is just an overall symptom of an unhealthy society. That's what I think. I think a lot of different factors bring you to the point that unclaimed bodies are piling up behind the hospital in refrigerators.
I think it's a perfect storm, really. You probably have a few different reasons that are adding up to this. And I think as the years go on, we have a real problem of unclaimed bodies that are going to be piling up in all of our streets and towns. And basically, the government's probably going to start enforcing bylaws where you must keep extra deep freezes on your property for unclaimed bodies. And not unclaimed bodies of people that you know, like unclaimed bodies of people that you don't know, because there's nowhere to put them. So
We all gotta
you have to
pitch
have
in.
at least 15 deep freezes in your basement for folded, unclaimed bodies.
You know, I don't know what has happened, but if someone who listens to this show regularly, you could see a trend where over the last 2 months, 3 months, the word bylaw has become a major part of the show. I don't know why. It's not just you. I like the stories involve bylaws. Just for some reason, bylaws are a reoccurring thread throughout the show, but only lately.
Only lately. I noticed it too. And I think we should go with that trend.
Should we call it the
And-
bylaw uprising? No, it's nothing like that.
No. We should call the podcast "Keep Canada Bylawed."
No.
Yeah, we'll workshop it.
Let's move on to a voicemail. I got some really good ones here. Let's do two. Let's just do one. Let's go to the United States. We'll go down to Illinois for a story connected, likely to the animal uprising, but certainly connected to the pile of rotisserie chickens found in Yukon. Listen to this. Here's one of our correspondents named Teresa.
Handsome Aaron Airport and jovial Jordan Bonaparte. This is Teresa. I'm a Chicagoland correspondent from way down in Illinois. I don't have any real news from the area. However, I overheard a conversation among some of my neighborhood Canadian geese the other day, and I didn't really understand until I heard your show. They were talking about all the chicken that was thrown out in that forested area. They seem to think that it is a salvo against the birds, a message, if you will, from people on the human side of the animal uprising. They're very concerned, and they've been all a squawk and a honk about it. I'll keep listening. I'll see if I can find out a little bit more info on it, but they're pretty sure that it was aimed at them. So have a wonderful day. I absolutely love everything about Nighttime Podcast and keeping Canada weird. I'm trying to keep Illinois weird for what that's worth. Have a good day, guys. Bye.
Do Canadian geese migrate? Do you know?
Next question, please.
I don't know. What are your thoughts on this?
I really hope it's not true. It's a solid, valid theory, and I certainly appreciate the caller providing us with it. But it scares me because I really hope I don't want to see anyone antagonizing the birds in such a manner. I fear for how it plays into the overall animal uprising, and I fear generally for humanity when eventually we are completely overwhelmed with what the animals have prepared and planned for us.
Yeah, this could be an act by resistance fighters in the Yukon, and if so, I think they've gone too far. I hope that's not what's happening.
But to answer your question, also, yes, the geese do migrate, and most do travel south to the United States or even to Mexico.
Really? But on their way back, they'd be coming up through Illinois. That's probably why they're passing by Teresa's place. They would have someone listening to this show, hearing the news about what's happened and what was found in the Yukon. They're reacting to it, and Teresa probably hears those honks and squawks coming in her window. And
perhaps we need to track down a
goose,
Canadian goose, and put a GPS tracker on it, and then use the data to come to some definitive answers here.
Answers about whether or not they migrate?
I'm not sure what we're talking about anymore.
I'm just thinking like a GPS tracker. We could just Google it. I'm pretty sure you did, right?
Yeah,
We don't need
but
a
I mean,
GPS tracker for anything.
but we want to get specific with
But what would a GPS?
with a one track of a goose.
But what would that? How would that play into anything? The flight path of anyway. I don't think to anyone out there we
I'm
do
not
not need
sure.
a
I
GPS.
mean, you asked the question and it got me just only thinking about
GPS
flight paths of geese. So
Okay. Let's go to something that makes more sense. Let's go to this to the story that I call WTF, which stands what the hell happened in Guelph last week. This is a short story based on a police what's it called, like when they a police report. If you have it in front of you there, why don't you read this one?
I certainly will.
I've read it myself several times, but I just kind of want to feel what it's like when someone
Mhm.
else reads it to me. And I just want to take this in fresh because this is something else.
Guelph police have arrested a woman they say had stolen mail in her possession while she was interrupting a church service. According to a news release, the caretaker of the church spotted a woman around 9 a.m. Thursday. She had been banned from the church due to previous incidents. Police say the caretaker repeatedly told the woman not to go inside, but she ignored him, went into the church, and walked around while yelling at people. Officers found her nearby and arrested her. She allegedly had several pieces of mail addressed to various people. The 42-year-old woman has been charged with 6 counts of breaching a probation order, failing to comply with a release order, and 3 counts of possessing stolen property.
So just so I understand, this woman, first of all, she's on probation. In one of her orders, because she's charged with breaching a probation order, one of her orders must either be like, don't steal mail, don't be in possession of stolen mail, or don't go to the church. So that's the background. She shows up at the church, which she's banned from due to past incidents. And first of all, like if you can get banned from a church, I would love to know how that even happens. But regardless, the caretaker sees her. She has a bunch of stolen letters, I guess, on her. They don't want her to go in the church. She goes in anyway, runs around yelling at people as the church service is going on, only to get arrested outside the building with this stolen mail. Now, when I hear this scene, when this scene plays out in my mind, none of it makes any sense. I feel like you are the only person on planet Earth that is able to maybe fill in some of the blanks so this becomes a narrative that flows in any way. Can you imagine any reason this woman would be doing this? Because in my mind, the only thing that makes sense is maybe she felt that the people in the that the mail belonged to the people in the church, and she was kind of this like renegade mail person in her mind. Other than that,
Well, that's where my mind was going to go with it. I kind of imagine this woman has been getting the wrong mail delivered to her over and over and over again. And, maybe it's a community where a lot of the community members attend church. So if she knows that if she's going to be able to talk to the people that she needs to talk to about their mail constantly showing up at her house, she needs to go to the church to talk to them there.
Town square, basically.
Yeah, exactly. It's the most logical place for her to go to reach these people. She has their mail in hand. It's always getting dropped off at her house. It's causing her to be irritated. It's causing her to lash out. She shows up. She's like, I told you to get this fixed. Your mail keeps showing up at my house. I'm tired of it. And maybe she even gets mail from the church there. Maybe there's some weird wormhole for mail where no matter what address is on it, no matter who it's for in the town, it keeps showing up in her mailbox somehow. And she's now trying to take matters into her own hands. She's trying to deliver the mail, but it's just not, the townspeople aren't understanding. I think there's some kind of a 4th or 5th dimension situation happening here where she's in multiple dimensions at once. and they're in a different dimension, but they're all in the same one, so they don't understand quite what she's saying. It's coming out maybe scrambled, staticky, and so she's kind of trapped in between dimensions with this male, but she's just trying to deliver it.
Yeah, but that wouldn't explain her from being banned from the church. Perhaps this has happened in the past and the townspeople want her to go through different channels, like, on the letter put return to sender, and it will go back and they will get it to us. Don't come to church and take this upon yourself. It's not your job. Could that be it? Don't come back here.
Well, maybe they don't want the mail because it's their cell phone bill. It's their power bill. It's their water bill. It's all of the bills that the townspeople don't want
Go to
that
her.
keep showing up at this woman's mailbox.
She is cursed. Okay.
Yeah, and so they're like, that's I don't want that. Get out of here. Ban her. Ban her.
Ban her from this church. Yeah. Okay.
Ban her to the sixth dimension.
Yeah. There. You solved it. I knew you'd be able to put that together. If anyone knows anything else about this story, I'm so curious to know what is going on here. Please get at me with theories. Be it you have inside knowledge of what's happening, or you've just heard what Aaron read and you have your own theory on what the F is happening in Guelph. Because I would like to know how these facts fit together in a way that makes sense. Aaron was able to do it. If you think you can, go to nighttimepodcast.com/contact and answer the question, what the F happened in Guelph? I know listeners of Keep Canada Weird, members of the Keep Canada Weird Army, are able to put forward theories that make sense. And that's my segue to this next one. Matt, a member of Keep Canada Weird, of the Keep Canada Weird Army, has a theory on the rotisserie chicken story. It's what Matt thinks happened in the woods. And I think he might be right.
Hey guys, it's Matt from Indiana in the United States, and I had a theory on the rotisserie chickens found in the woods, and I feel like this has to be a money laundering scheme. Like, I'm sure you guys have like a Canadian mob, right? And they've got a front. It's a store that sells these rotisserie chickens, and they've got to pretend they've sold all these rotisserie chickens so they can move this money. So then they got to have one of their low-level thugs get rid of these rotisserie chickens, and he just takes them in the woods and ditches them out in the woods somewhere. But I feel like this problem for them would probably be remedied if they would just recruit Aaron Airport. Since he loves the rotisserie chicken so much, he could just get rid of them. He'd eat them all. And I mean, he's already got a mobster name. I mean, not just a mobster name, but a mob boss name like Scarface or Babyface. He's Handsome Aaron Airport. I mean, tell me that's not a mob name. And Jordan, you've got yourself a mob name now too, but it's more like one of those low-level thugs. You just bust stop Bonaparte.
That's the end of it. We never thought of the money laundering aspect of it. I think he's got a great point.
I think he needs to be careful about
how close to the fire
where he's shining his flashlights.
Yeah, don't get too close to the fire. You end up getting burned. And you know what I think is Bust Stop Bonaparte, it does kind of sound like a low-level thug. I picture like just this big arms, big tough guy. Bust Stop Bonaparte, where Handsome Aaron Airport shows up in his suit and like makes things happen.
Well, Bust Stop Bonaparte to me reminds me of like the first level boxer in Mike Tyson's Punch Out. Like that's the first guy you're fighting, and then you have to move on. Like, and each guy is tougher and tougher to beat. But Bust Stop Bonaparte, he's like the skinny loser first guy that like you have to fight in Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
Yeah, you'd find him at the bus stop. He'd just pick at you there, and you'd have to just beat his face in. Yeah, I could see it. It's and that's why I don't endorse that name. I like Jovial Jordan Bonaparte because I like jovial means happy, right?
Yeah. Because means you're jolly, you're jovial.
I think that's accurate.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd use jovial as the way to describe your happiness.
Blissfully ignorant?
No. I think your happiness is genuine, but it's more in like a madness kind of way.
Oh.
Like you're completely deranged, which is why you're so happy. You're completely unaware of reality.
Okay. All right.
But I really like Bust Stop Bonaparte. It's got a good rhythm to it. lots of buh sounds. They're very satisfying to say.
Yeah.
Bus stop Bonaparte strikes again. Bus stop Bonaparte banned from church with stolen mail. Bus stop Bonaparte found with 40 rotisserie chickens in the woods.
I like it. Well, let's wrap this up for tonight, though. Unless you got anything to say.
I just want the listeners to call in, leave us those voicemails because we love them. They're fueling us. They are our coal. We are not green here and Keep Canada Weird. We are still firing off of coal.
And using our gas-powered appliances.
And another thing, when you leave your voicemails, let us know where you listen to Keep Canada Weird. Do you listen in the car? Do you listen in bed? Do you listen in the woods? Do you listen on the top of a mountain alone?
Completely naked?
Covered in rotisserie chicken skins?
All right. Yeah, I'd be curious to hear that as well. Well, let's wrap this up for tonight. Handsome Aaron Airport, until next time.
Jordan, until next time.
When you go walking through the woods, hear some people talking off into the distance. They may not always be fellow hikers. People do weird stuff in the woods. I've always been fascinated with what goes on deep in the woods. It's like the one place, it seems, that we actually have privacy and anonymity. You don't have it on the internet anymore, but if you go deep enough in the woods, no one's ever going to find out what you do down there. Let your freak flag fly in the woods.
Yes, and Jordan, until next time. I don't have a private beach for us to be naked in, but I do have a bathtub, and I could fill that with water, set up some lawn chairs next to it, and a hot plate, cook us some sausage, and sit there naked and just enjoy each other's bodies in a non-sexual way.
Okay. I'll consider it. I want to thank you for helping Aaron and I fulfill our mission to keep Canada weird, but let us also call out to you for even greater support in this work. If something weird happens in your neck of the woods, let us know about it. And if you have any thoughts, theories, opinions, or corrections on anything we discussed tonight, we want to hear about that too. The best way to reach us is by sending a voice message using the voice recorder app found at nighttimepodcast.com/contact. And to sweeten that deal a little bit, if your voice is aired on the show, you qualify for a free Keep Canada Weird swag pack. Once you hear your voice message played, all you got to do is email me at nighttimepodcast@gmail.com and give me your mailing address, and I'll have it out to you right away. Aaron and I are excited to hear from you. Now, before we part, let me end with some thanks. First, a big thanks to Aaron for sharing another evening with me and with you, the listeners of Nighttime. A big shout out to the internet's favorite cult leader, Unicole, who provides the intro and outro voiceovers. And lastly, but most importantly, a massive thank you goes out to each and every one of you listening to Nighttime, as without your interest and your support, this show would be as pointless as it would be impossible. On the topic of support, let me thank the newest subscribers to the premium feed. Corey, David, and Cheyenne, thank you for going premium. And for anyone else who'd like to support the show, you can help us out here in a variety of ways. First of all, a premium feed subscription costs just a couple dollars a month, and that money will fund the creation of new episodes. But the premium feed will also give you those episodes 2 days early, give them to you ad-free, and give you access to a full back catalog of episodes. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can go premium right now at patreon.com/nighttimepodcast. And even if you don't want to go premium, you can still support the growth of the show by sharing this episode on social media and letting all your friends know why they should listen. Your support in keeping Canada weird is very much appreciated. So until next time, take care of each other, hug your loved ones tight, and let us know if you see anything weird.
Keep Canada Weird is written, hosted, and produced by the Nighttime Podcast.
And now to our viewers and listeners everywhere. Good night.
Something I want to start doing, and actually this is an idea my son presented today. I often will tell him about, he's always very interested in what are you talking about tonight on Keep Canada Weird, and I present the stories to him. And what he pitched to me today is he's like, you should do something at the end of the episodes where you and Aaron pick what the Keep Canada weirdest story of the night was, or which we can, I guess, call like the
weirdest of the week.
The weirdest of the week, yeah. In our stories were the Bare Naked Beach in Alberta, what the F happened in Guelph, the stolen cows, and Newfoundland's unclaimed dead.
No, I think the Bare Naked Beach is probably the most Keep Canada weirdest episode or a story this week. But I think, the weirdest overall is the cow theft.
Really, I thought the weirdest overall is the police report from Guelph.
Really? See, that to me
just stolen mail, banned.
It's more than likely just somebody unhinged, just doing unhinged things.
Okay. Yeah, I guess if you're just talking headlines, what is going to stand out as like, whoa, that's weird news? It's going to be the stolen cows. You're right. 75
well, the cow theft
cows.
has legit mystery to it. Like what happened in Guelph with that woman in the church? We have our fun theories, but at the end of the day, it's just somebody unhinged doing something unhinged. But cow theft, that's a massive theft of a lot of cows. It's got a whodunit. It's got how did they do it? There's a lot to that you can sink your teeth into. Okay. So
yeah, I think you've convinced me. Overall, weirdest story is the stolen cows.
I agree. Yeah, that's the way to go.
Okay. I'd also be curious. That's something we can ask listeners as well. If they want to present what they think is the weirdest news story, we can receive that in voicemails, and it can be something we can include in upcoming episodes. I think that would be interesting to see what the Keep Canada Weird Army thinks. If it's different than our opinion, I'd like to hear about it.